Hello everyone, Mondevu here, back with another quest tutorial for Path of Titans. This time I'm in the Mudflats, and it's a small one. It's just this chunk of islands right here. That is it. That's all the Mudflats is. It's very small. I've chosen a concavenator because they are semi-aquatic. That just makes navigating this area easier. But you can do this as a terrestrial dino. It's just you're going to have a little bit of trouble because even though the water is shallow, it's usually still deep enough to encourage swimming, especially if you're something small. So I swapped to this to make it easier for you guys to find the items you need. So the first is collecting sea stars, or 15 starfish. This is what the starfish look like, and they only spawn in clumps of 3. So it's kind of a pain because they only spawn in clumps of 3. And this can be especially irritating if you're doing group quests. But your dinos can reach these, even your terrestrials. And this is another starfish. They don't all look the same. Sometimes they're blue, sometimes they're yellow. You just gotta look for a starfish. That's essentially how that one works. But, you know, like I said, if you're in a group, it can be a little bit of a pain to do these because that means you're collecting 30 of these suckers. But knowing what they look like helps, and you can reach these as pretty much any of your terrestrial dinos. Because basically what you'll do is you'll swim directly above the item and look straight down, and that will usually highlight it to the point that you can collect it. You don't have to be semi-aquatic like I am. I'm just doing it to make it easier for you guys to see what's going on. And in some places, like right here, if your dino is big enough, you can just stand in the water and collect. And you get a decent amount of marks for that one. Now, Gifts from the Sea, that's a notorious quest. A lot of people hate the Gifts from the Sea quest. I am one of these people. But it also depends on where I am. In the Mudflats, it's slightly annoying. In Burnt Forest, it's perfectly fine. And then in Hoodoo Hills, it's a pain in the neck. So it really depends on where you are when you get this quest. So the turtle shells are going to be the most difficult part of this quest. Now, I am going to preface this by saying, even though it says collect shellfish, it can be any shellfish. It can be clams, it can be conches, it can be these things, the spiny conches. These all count as shellfish, so like regardless of whether or not it is correct, you're collecting shells. Don't worry about it saying fish, you're collecting shells. Doesn't matter what kind of shell, that's what you're looking for. And in the Mudflats in particular, they tend to be these spiny conches. But they can be clams, they can be regular conch shells. Any kind of shell is basically what you're looking for. Any kind of seashell is what you need for the shellfish part of this quest. And they'll usually spawn near water. In this case, it spawns slightly in, but they'll usually spawn along the coast somewhere. See, and these right here, these are slightly different too. These are sea snails. But they also count towards that quest. There you go, here's another one. This one's at a cluster of rocks. That's a little abnormal, but, you know, it's still technically a coast. So it's still within the normal areas of where it spawns. These things can spawn in clumps of either 7 or 6, depending on how they spawn. Because sometimes you'll get clams that spawn on the side of rocks and still partially above water. And those will be in clumps of 6. But the ones that are on the shore, or partially in the water like that one was, those will be in clumps of 7. It's weird. I'm not sure why it does that. That's just how it does. Let's see. Need more seashells. Seashells. I just need like one more clump. Ah, there we go, I can see it. So here's the seashells. Usually focusing on the seashell part of this quest is best because that way you can devote your entire time to finding the turtle shells, which are a pain in the neck. Now, this is what the turtle shells look like. Most of the time, in my experience, they will spawn near like driftwood. This one in particular is obviously nowhere near driftwood, and they're not usually near driftwood in Burnt Forest either. But in Burnt Forest, if you recall, because they spawn on the beach, and the beach in Burnt Forest is black, this orange kind of pops out. So you really don't need to worry about the common environment over in Burnt Forest because orange shell against black background. So we're going to collect this. But in most other places, they will spawn near driftwood. Now, I saw one over here somewhere that was in... Yeah, sometimes they'll spawn in these clumps of dried seaweed too. But usually, not all the time, usually it's near driftwood. And if the particular biome you're in does not have driftwood, but you still have this quest, then look for clumps of seaweed. So, that's how that one works. And I saw one spawning partially in the water over here. I know I saw it. I'm not quite sure where. A lot of these items do also spawn underwater because you can play as an aquatic dinosaur. There are underwater quests. I am less familiar with those, but I will still cover those to the best of my ability once I am done covering all of the terrestrial points of interest. All right, where are these other shells? See, this is where the turtle shell quest becomes a pain, because they're not close to each other, and you usually need 5 of them. And then if you're in a group, you need 10 of them. So it's just kind of like, ah! The quests are just a little bit of a pain. Here, see, this one spawned near some rocks, but also still within that dead seaweed. So now we only need 1 more. Ah, there's one. Okay. Now, filter feeders, lake sponge. This can be a pain because you're sitting there going, but wait, I'm a terrestrial dinosaur. How do I get lake sponges? What do they even look like? I'll show you, because I saw some earlier. Lake sponges are these little yellow tube things, and you can still collect them as your terrestrial dino. I promise you can. I've done it. It's just a pain in the neck to do because you have to swim. I saw some earlier. Where did they go? Finding them can be a pain. They'll spawn in shallow water, and this is another deep water quest as well. But Path of Titans is pretty good about not giving your terrestrial dinosaurs aquatic quests. So if it gives you a quest that you don't feel like you can do it, you just might not know where to look. Here we go. This right here is lake sponge. Collects in clumps of 1. This right here is just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. These yellow tubes. They'll spawn in clusters like the little icon says, but when you pick it up it becomes a singular tube. It's like dried macaroni. Or moldy macaroni. So there you go. We need 25 of these. So we're gonna be looking down a lot. But you see, I can just swim over it directly and look down and collect it, and that way I don't even have to dive. Now, as a semi-aquatic, I can dive, but this is just to show you that you can still do this quest as a terrestrial. You can just swim over, look straight down, and you're good. Now, the only other area that I know of that has you collect these is Ripple Beach. But in Ripple Beach, it's a lot easier because there's almost no swimming involved unless you're small. Here we go. And sometimes it really is a matter of, like, swimming out and looking down and seeing. So watch your stamina in the Mudflats, because you can still drown out here. It's harder to drown out here. Like, you kind of have to make a concerted effort because there's a lot of shallow places that you can get to and at least catch your breath before you get to shore. But yeah, watch your stamina when you're doing this quest in the Mudflats, because that will get you if you're not careful. Okay, I'm not seeing it over here anymore. You can see the starfish are starting to come back. Still need more of these. Still need more of these. Ah, okay. See, now this quest I don't get often because I'm not usually in the Mudflats. So I only know to check the deep water, but so far from what I'm seeing, it looks like you check for the seaweed here, and they're usually close to that, which is a good indicator. I'm not quite sure how that works in the ocean, because I don't play aquatic dinos a lot, especially since right now there's only 2 of them, at least officially. There's several more modded dinosaurs, so like the aquatic population is slowly growing, but on the officials, there's only 2 species. So I'm not as familiar with the aquatic quests as I am the terrestrial ones. And this whitewater stuff can get really annoying too. Come here. Come on. There we go. See? You can get it, it's just a pain sometimes. Sometimes you have to hold down your collect button while swimming to make sure you get the item, just because it's just deep enough that it did that thing right there where it just wanted to be a pain in the neck for no reason. Let's see. Okay, I think I've cleared this particular area, so let's move on. I've only got 3 more to get. They should still be in this region. We haven't left the Mudflats yet. Oh, here's the seaweed. Oh, and there's a lake sponge. Okay, so my instinct on this is correct. You find the seaweed, you'll find the lake sponge. And there we go. Ah, see, here's a perfect example of what I mean. by in other places you will find the turtle shell near the driftwood. This right here is what I mean. You look for this particular type of driftwood or something similar, and you'll usually find our turtle shell nearby. So that covers the mudflats. I believe, let me double check real quick. Thought there was something survival related that was helpful. I thought there was, I could be wrong. Is it not over here? Is it gone? It's not over here. Okay. I thought there was like a berry bush or a corpse or something over here, but I was wrong. I think at one point there used to be and they removed it. Because sometimes the devs will move things to try to prevent extreme hotspot camping. Now granted, I don't know any server where Mudflats is a hotspot, but you'll know the hotspots when we get there. So hopefully this video was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Oh, and ignore the pinecone quest. That just came because I popped up into Hunter's Thicket for a moment.